Good evening. It's 8 o'clock. It's Thursday. So that means only one thing. It's time for Mek We Chat right here on GrenadaBroadcast.com and all the supporting online services that GrenadaBroadcast.com uses to broadcast. Facebook, YouTube, and everywhere else that George will tell us about at some time. Welcome all. Welcome to this edition of Mek We Chat. We are missing a lot of the usual suspects this evening.
I know.
George Grant at the control. Good, faithful George as usual. Margaret, snow, sleet, or hail in New York. You know Margaret is there. And yours truly, Beverley Sinclair, somewhere in Grenada. It's just the three of us right now. We're hoping to see the others join us as the evening goes on. I hope they won't take too long. Suspect in chief, who was missing last week, said he's going to be late, about half an hour late. So we expect to see him joining us by around 8:30 or so. Let's just keep our fingers crossed that the other suspects will get here. But in the meantime, we are here and the show must go on, as we say, no plan B. So welcome everyone. We appreciate you joining us. Always glad to have your company. And we look forward to some exciting and scintillating discussions over the next couple of hours right here on Mek We Chat. But we get going on a very, very sad note, and we have to put it up front.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm probably still too broken up to even think about it.
Right.
To even talk about it, but we have to say it. We have to express our condolences here on Mek We Chat to Grenada's Olympic gold medalist Kirani James, who lost his mother. And we know that they were very, very close.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who knows Kirani knows that he was very close with his mother. So to hear that she has passed on, I tell you, it shook me up.
I know. I
can just imagine what he's going through.
Mm-hmm. I remember I got the news last night and I went like, what?
Yeah. When I got the news first, I say, I hope this isn't some sick joke that some people are playing.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of dismissed it. It's one of those things you don't want to accept when you hear it.
Yeah.
You just kind of dismissed it and hope that the next news you hear will be, that wasn't true. But that never came, and eventually just had to face up to the reality that our Olympic gold medalist, Kirani James, has lost his mother, and it's an impact on the entire nation of Grenada. It really is. She was really a tower of strength behind Kirani. She front and center in all of his achievements, from school days straight through to London 2012 when he got that gold. And, every time he came home, it's just Kirani and mommy.
Right.
They were like a team, inseparable.
You couldn't see one without the other, yeah.
Exactly.
That is so true. She was such a tremendous influence from everything that you see and heard.
Yeah, and they say she was just one sweet person.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And the person that Kirani is, I think she demonstrated what parenting should be.
Yes.
She certainly showed how to raise a child.
And not just any child, but a boy, because so often people say it's difficult to raise boys.
Yes.
And I think she did a phenomenal job with him.
Phenomenal
We saw
job.
that We saw that in his whole demeanor and in his mannerisms after winning each of his wins.
Yeah.
You know, Bev, you
saw
say
that
she
there.
was a sweet lady. And I thought that that was such an appropriate description. I remember meeting her on the night that Kirani first returned to Grenada after winning the medal. That's
Yeah.
as far as I can recall, that's the only time I ever met this lady, and she was so gentle and so humble. It really caught my attention, and I said to her, you know, I'm really looking forward to sitting down sometime in the future and chatting with you. That never materialized, but it's something I will always remember, her humility.
Yeah. Very gracious, you know, so forgiving, so warm, and all of these qualities you see in her son. Because it doesn't matter what situation Kiran is in, he's just himself. Just that young man that she shaped and groomed and shared with the world, shared with Grenada and shared with the rest of the world. And I tell you, it's really a tremendous loss of someone who exemplified what a parent should be. A parent to Kirani, a parent who just shone over this entire nation. She's certainly gonna be missed. You hear that when a lot of people pass on, but she's absolutely gonna be missed.
And you know, she obviously had an impact on the people of this nation, because I noticed today that there were a couple of tributes that were put out, and I was shocked at how quickly a tribute came from the
Yes.
Prime Minister. Bang! You know, I only found out about this morning about 8 o'clock, but it wasn't long after that I saw the tribute from the Prime Minister, then one from Claudette Joseph, who is with the other side.
Even the sleeping opposition woke up to send out a tribute to her.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
I say, even the sleeping opposition woke up.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, they were pretty pumped, and
Yeah.
I think that speaks volumes. You know, people really
Yes, it does. Yes,
people
it
really
does, you know.
recognize this lady. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I
or
think that's probably the one good thing that would probably come from this, if there's anything you want to say is good, is that while nobody can make up for the loss of his mother, he has a whole nation wrapping
yes.
him,
Oh,
behind him.
absolutely.
I hope.
Kirani has always been the one person who causes this nation to transcend everything and just unite.
I see here on Facebook, John is saying that the Senate also had a minute's silence.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, I thought that was good.
While
You know,
Yeah.
nobody can.
I'm just hopeful that this is not going to have too much of an impact on Karani's performance. You know, stuff like that has a tendency to hit you psychologically.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yes. Oh, yes. You know, I tell you, if it could affect me that way, you know, just one individual in the society, I can just imagine for him, you know, who I would not begin to compare how I feel about it with how he feels about it. So I do expect it to have an impact on him. How it will manifest itself, how he will deal with it, only time will tell. But it is one of those gut punches that just knock the wind out of you. And our condolences to him.
Did I just see
And
Margaret crying?
No, my eyes are burning me. Nah. Nah.
and we know for sure, you said it, Margaret, that the entire nation is wrapping really comforting arms around Kirani and his siblings and the rest of the family at this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Do you know? Do you know she was ailing, or was this something sudden?
I don't know.
That's it. The detailed information has been pretty slow in coming out, but I thought I saw that. I thought I saw the word "sudden" mentioned somewhere. I don't remember. It might have been on Facebook or someplace. And I was just wondering whether she was ailing or not.
Yeah, the bits and pieces of stuff floating around out
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah.
I'm not really paying any attention to it
Yeah.
because she's gone. She's no longer here. And I don't know if it helps to even know the circumstances. I don't know,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just a body blow to hear that she's gone. Certainly. And just 3 days before Mother's Day, 4 days before Mother's Day,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a tough time of the year
Mhm. Mhm.
to lose your mother, and a mother who is a real mother.
Close to her son. Just like
Yeah.
me and my mom.
Yeah. Yeah, you've been through the experience.
Was he here? Or is he here?
I don't know if he's here. I don't think he's here, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, because of the close relationship between mom and son, I couldn't help but think about when my mom passed. Never in my life, I had never seen anybody die until my mom. And I'll never forget that morning, sitting at the side of the bed, holding my mom's hand and my little puppy, Brandy, whom everybody knows. Brandy's just looking up at me like, Uncle George, what's happening? What's happening? And then my mom took her final breath. And I picked up that dog and put her on the bed where my mom was. And Brandy and my mom were extremely close. And she got on the bed and she just sniffed my mom's arm, sniffed and sniffed and sniffed. And then she lay down on the side of the bed and put her head on my mom's arm. And let me tell you, that hit me even harder than watching my mom die. It talked about the closeness of Brandy. It's like she had finally realized, uh-oh, Granny's gone. Dogs ain't stupid. Animals ain't
No.
stupid.
No, oh no.
Oh.
Dogs? Oh no.
Yeah.
I can tell you some stories about dogs because I always had a dog.
Oh,
I
are you
don't
a
have
puppy lover?
Yeah.
I don't have a dog now, but
Yeah. I had a
all
dog.
my life growing up, I've always had a dog.
Okay. Wow. Welcome to the doggy world.
Yeah. And I had a dog for my daughter. My daughter had a dog, and I could tell you some tales with my daughter and her dog. Nobody could get near my daughter.
You too,
If she
Max?
gra- If she,
Yeah. Who, me? Yeah. I had dogs. I had dogs as a kid growing up. Yeah. In fact, I remember my dog had its own brush. It had its own bath towel. It had all the things for dogs. Every single thing. I took care of my dog. My mother would tell you that. What? No, my dog was spoiled.
yeah,
All of them. I had multiple dogs.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
By the way,
yeah. Welcome,
guys.
Athie.
Welcome, Athie.
I don't know if Athie's here.
Doesn't seem to be.
Yeah,
Well,
he doesn't seem to.
I'll tell you what I'm really pumped up about. It looks like Athie's preparing, or at least his wife is preparing dinner for us in the background there,
Aha, good. And where my belly going tonight, I welcome that for you. Hurry up, Mrs. Athie.
Mrs. Athie. Athie, oi. He's
Not
not
hearing
hearing
a
us.
word we say.
Nah, nah, nah. And he's wearing specs tonight, man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only non-specky here tonight.
You're the only one with 2020 vision.
Boy, I wish. I wish. And it looks like we're just about to be joined by Mr. Dwyer
Dwyer Astaphan.
Yeah.
Well, welcome, guys. Yeah, I guess you'll see Dwyer in a few minutes.
Yeah, that isn't that fascinating? This man has his own techie. That face you're looking at is not Dwyer Astaphan. There is Dwyer with his shorts and showing off his legs in the
Ooh,
background
showing
there.
off legs and thighs. We're in KFC tonight.
Yeah.
I know, right?
And he's promoting St. Kitts tonight, man. He's promoting St.
know,
Kitts.
right?
Yeah.
It looks like he might even be playing
Athie,
soccer.
are you hearing us?
It doesn't seem so.
Athie?
Dwyer,
Yeah.
are you hearing us?
I'm hearing you, yes.
Yeah,
Very
he's
good.
good.
Good evening,
Yeah.
good evening. Sorry
Good
to be late.
evening.
Good evening and welcome. We're happy to have you. Athie doesn't seem to be hearing us. Dwyer, you better send over your techie to get Athie organized.
Athie, wake up.
Nice to
but
see you.
welcome, guys. We haven't gone very far in the program because we're just mourning a little bit with the rest of Grenada. Grenada's only Olympic champion to date, Kirani James, has lost his mother. And she was just such a remarkable person. Someone who showed what parenting should be. And as Margaret pointed out, how to raise a boy child. And we know she was a single parent. She raised him alone. And for the most part. And she did such a fine job raising such a, I have to use the word again, such a fine young man. Someone who would make any mother proud, not just because of his achievements as a track athlete, but because of who he is as a person, and because of her parenting skills and the type of person she was. The entire nation is really, really in mourning at this time. So you missed us expressing our condolences to Kirani James, to the siblings, to the family. It's really a tremendous loss to Grenada that such a fine woman has gone on. And I would say at such an early age, because she certainly was not at the age where you expect people to move on.
Yeah.
Not at all. She's definitely gonna be missed. Definitely.
So let's extend those condolences not just to the family and friends, but to the nation, because
entire nation.
I was downtown this afternoon doing some errands, and it seemed like even on the streets, a lot of people were talking about it. It was like a national hero had died, and I thought, wow.
Yeah. People haven't been talking about anything else since last night. It's a shock. It's a blow. It's gonna take a few days really to come around and start to even think how to deal with it. Yeah. It's
so. Go ahead.
Yes. So not one of those things we can do anything about, really, death. If only we could, but we can't.
Yeah.
So
as we continue to wait for, what do you call him, suspect in chief?
Suspect in chief said around 8:30, so...
Yeah.
So that's another 10 minutes.
I hope he's aware that, bearing the title suspect in chief does not mean that you don't have to bring a note signed by your mom. And Dwyer,
Yes, sir.
I want you to make a note of this, that, this is your second visit with us, and we are just overwhelmingly delighted to have you with us. You were so powerful
sir.
the last time around. But when people don't show up or show up late, they have to bring a note signed by their mom. So I think you better take note of that early o'clock.
Well, in Athie's case, I would recommend that he brings a note signed by his grandmother, dead or alive. Let's make sure it's authentic.
Are you a lawyer, Dwyer?
Yes, but don't hold that against me, please.
No. I wasn't going to hold it against you. I was going to, I was just wondering, whether we could utilize your services. Take the note to you to make sure it's authentic.
Sure, we'll get it validated, everything, signature, the whole 9 yards.
Okay. Get his address, Bev.
I too want to extend my condolences. I didn't know about Mr. James's mom's passing. He is an icon here in St. Kitts and Nevis as well. In fact, a Caribbean icon. He's a tremendous young man, and a lot of that greatness that he has must have had some genesis. And from what you're saying, Beverly, his mom seems to have been a giant. And there's lessons to be taken out of death. It tells us that life is limited, and what's important is what you do while you have life. And she seemed to have lived an outstanding life and raised an outstanding young man who is a beacon and a model, not just for young people in Grenada, but throughout the Caribbean, in fact, throughout the world. So I hope that her country holds her up as, as an icon and as the mother, as we should all elevate motherhood. Our mother, the earth, our mother, Grenada, our mother, Jamaica. Let us not just lift Mr. James high, but lift his mom high. He is the mango. She was the mango tree. So we must lift her high and use her as a role model for motherhood to young mothers in Grenada and the region, because our young women and young men need so much instruction and guidance in parenting and having good role models, So let's hope that out of this cometh more good from Mrs. James.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, Dwyer.
Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the usual suspects will know that I have a real passion about parenting, because I believe that the ills in society are a result of the lack of parenting.
Indeed.
And I've heard so many parents say, oh, you make the children, you can't make their mind. Well, I have news for them. You do make their minds. They learn from you from an early age what's right from wrong. You set the standards which they follow. You are the one who let them know what they can get away with, what they can do. You are the one who give them those core principles, whether right or wrong. It's what they are nurtured with. So don't come making an excuse. When your child is not what you want the child to be, you try to pretend that it's not your fault. It is your fault as a parent. A poor parent is going to raise a child who will be problematic in society.
Do you think, Beverly, that parents are given sufficient accountability in our society under our system of laws? For example, I was having a discussion this morning about parents being summoned to the school to discuss the conduct or misconduct of their children, or parents attending PTA meetings, and the teachers say it's like pulling teeth. The parents must be mandated to attend these meetings. And not only that, some of the parents would like to attend, but they do not get off from their jobs. Or if they do get off, the employers deduct their pay. So I think we need to institutionalize this responsibility and carry it to the parents. If you're a parent, if you see this pretty lady and you want to be intimate with her and to dine at the table, you have to be prepared to wash the dishes after, to use a very ordinary analogy. And parenting is a beautiful thing. It's an enormous responsibility, but it is a beautiful responsibility as well. And we're not trained to appreciate the importance of parenting. It is not taught in the schools. Role playing is not taught in our schools, as far as I'm aware, and parenting is not taught to our children by their parents, who for the most part are not prepared to be parents. And that is why there's so much toxicity in our societies.
Exactly.
So parents have to be responsible, man. They have to be responsible. If you want your child to get a so-called free education and school meals and school books and so forth, you have to understand that there's a value to that.
Exactly.
There's a value to that, and you have to carry a load.
No, Dwyer, you have said what I absolutely believe. Parents are not held accountable. I remember once saying that we do not have delinquent teens, we have delinquent parents.
Prodigal parents.
But Dwyer, there's a comment that just popped up here on Facebook which may fit right into what you were just saying. John is saying children are raising children.
Yeah.
Could that be the big problem, Dwyer?
Yeah.
But that's not new. The thing is, in past generations, you had the extended family, you had a community which provided critical support to the process of raising these children. You had spirituality. They've thrown spirituality out of the school systems now. And so what we have are new generations of consumers. The latest cell phone, the biggest pizza, a family box of chicken, KFC, the Burger King, the latest iPad and everything like that. So values have gone out of the window and we are rabid consumers. And in that kind of materialistic paradigm, social, human, psychological, and spiritual elements have no currency or very little.
Yeah,
every time carnival season comes around and you see the mothers, I've never witnessed a father or a male person with a child. It's always a female with a child out there in a carnival parade, exposing the child to things that a 6-month-old or a 4-month-old or a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old ought not to be exposed to.
Right.
Not to mention the more impressionable 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, the kind of language in the music, the kind of behavior of the adults around them. If you want to have an adult party, children should not be there. And all these excuses we make about carnival, if carnival is going to be an adult thing, keep the children out of it. But it cannot be taking children, and I raise it because it's one of the things that's being used these days, one of the tools for raising children. And when you have young people children come up through this and become young people, they don't see anything wrong with that kind of behavior. They see nothing wrong with the kind of lyrics, sometimes vulgar, sometimes violent lyrics, lawless lyrics in some of the music that they were taught to gyrate to. I saw this most despicable thing recently where you have some children in Dominica. I'm glad Athie is back. I hope he's hearing us now. You have children in Dominica singing party song. I mean, young children, Dwyer, 8 years old, 9 years old, 7 years old, singing some party song for some candidate. Children. And people take their children and expose them and get them involved in these things. And then when they become teens, you call them delinquent.
Child abuse.
It is child abuse. And those parents need to be held responsible for raising children that are going to become problems in the society.
Indeed. Indeed.
Before we go any further, guys, just let me ask Athie to try and center that beautiful face of yours, Athie, so that nobody out there misses anything.
Be yourself, man.
There he
yourself,
goes.
George.
There he goes. And Dwyer's probably very happy to see Athie back. And Dwyer,
George, behave yourself. You have children listening to your radio show.
and Dwyer, could you
Yes, sir.
just sit back a little bit, because we want to make sure everybody there we go. Now you got it. Now I can stick a graphic up under your chin there saying, "This is Mr. Dwyer Astaphan." Hey, how about that? Thank you, sir. Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful. Take the mug shot now, cops. I'm only kidding.
What are we talking about? I'm sorry. My apologies for joining late. I had a slight technical issue, but also I'm in the middle of some other things.
Yes, we noticed you were not with us technically the first time you came on, so we figured you had gone to repair that and to come back. So we're happy to have you back. And Suspect in Chief did send a message that he'd be late. He'd show up about 8:30, and so he did.
It was a technically convenient problem.
George, didn't you have a message for Athie regarding being late?
Yes, there was a note here that Margaret is keeping her. Pardon me?
No. That's a different one. Dwyer gave you a message for Athie regarding being late. Who was the note supposed to be from here now?
Oh, yes. Dwyer, why don't you be bold enough and tell Athie what... Mr. George, don't sit there giggling, because we're coming at you in a minute. You notice you came in there and nobody said a word about your presence? Hold on a minute. Dwyer, would you please speak to Mr. Martin?
Athie,
Hey,
Sakafet.
nula, saufena.
Okay, Mwala. Look,
Okay.
I came into the program a little late myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was given instructions, which I'm now going to carry out.
Okay.
The instructions are to tell you that your lateness can only be excused if you can provide a written explanation by your grandmother, dead or alive, and her signature has to be validated by a notary public. Okay, that's my instruction. I just carried it out.
That's very easily done. In anticipation of such circumstances, my grandmother actually gave me many notes.
It has to be today's date, brother.
Yeah, and she left the date open.
Oh, she was a forger. Your grandmother was a forger.
No, she was French.
Oh, French.
Might be the same thing, but she was French.
Okay. Oh, guys.
Now, there he is in the center there, Mr. George, giggling. Do you think for 1 minute, sir, that you are exempt from the castigation?
Ignored is more like it.
Good to
Yeah,
see you, Jerry.
Ignored. It's more like it.
Good to see you.
Hiding.
Look how long before Athie came on here, nobody paid attention to me. So I could.
No. Athie was there and got
I know
boxed
he
and came
went.
back
That's what
on.
I'm saying. Before he came back on, I said.
Who is that,
No,
Jerry?
even,
Yes,
yes,
exactly.
that's
You're not
Jerry.
afraid.
Brother Jerry.
Hey, how you doing, Dwyer? Good to see you.
Cool,
When
cool,
I came
cool.
in, you were pontificating, so I
Yeah,
kept
I
my
was-
head down.
I was acting under instruction.
You see,
Wait
there
a
it
minute.
is. He admitted it. He was hiding.
Who was hiding?
The same one who asking.
In plain sight, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, he's trying to fly under the radar. That's what he was trying to
In
do.
plain sight.
Yeah, but let us take our break and come back. We kind of segued into this talk about parenting because we were expressing our condolences to Kirani James and his family and just talking about what a fine young man his mother raised and the attributes that are lacking in so many parents today. So let's take a break and come back.
Bev, just before you run off to the break, on the matter you folks were discussing a couple of minutes ago, Sharon here says, I agree with your suggestion, Bev. You see the kind of whining these babies are doing. You know, this kiddies carnival, and I mean, the way some of these parents dress up their kids, and we're talking pre-teens, you know, you're talking kids 3, 4, 5 years old. I mean, so little wonder that we have what we have. And John says, he heard a 2019 soca song on the radio today with the chorus, Bend Over. Now, I mean, somebody outside of Grenada may not understand what that means, but I think we all know what's going on here. The insinuation. Dwyer?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's par for the course.
Yeah.
That's par for the course.
Yeah.
Pathetic, but some of the realities we have to live with. Okay, guys, let's take that break and we'll come on back.
Are you equipped to take a closer look behind the numbers? The Caribbean Institute of Forensic Accounting can help you build your professional skills to audit and investigate fraud, waste, and abuse. Through the Forensic Certified Public Accountants FCPA program, you gain qualification to conduct forensic audits and investigations globally, earn international recognition and designation as a Forensic Certified Public Accountant from the Forensic CPA Society of the USA. Certificate courses run May to November 2019 in Grenada at the Grenada National Stadium. To register, contact us at info@cfa-edu.com or 868-224-3478.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing. So it's good to know I have Co-op Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank. And there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Welcome home.
Boy, you, they gonna fly with kite now. The wind picking up.
I'm coming. Karim, what you doing?
Fly my kite.
Yeah, but not here. You can't fly kite near power lines, boy.
Why not? The wind good.
Because mommy say, kite threads conduct electricity.
Yeah, kite. He's right. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, it can cause power outages, or even worse, it can get shocked.
Come, let's go and fly them in the pasture.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kite threads conduct electricity. Do not fly kites near overhead power lines. This can lead to electric shocks and power outages. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, do not try to retrieve it. Release it and call GRENADA. Always fly kites in open areas. Keep your kites far away from roads. And remember, always clean up after yourself.
GRENADA, energizing our Grenada.
All right, guys, take it away.
You know?
Take it away.
Because
Oh, we're back.
Yeah, man.
yes. Welcome back, everyone. And the chief suspect is here, you know, and I'm wondering if I should give him back his job tonight. But
I good enough. I cool. And holiday.
yeah,
Oh, really? Really?
I wonder
Oh,
when
yes,
the holiday come
really.
about. Anyway, we are back, folks, and suspect in chief is here. We missed him last week, and we're happy to have him back this week. And all our other suspects, we are so happy to have Dwyer with us again this week. And we want Dwyer to become one of the usual suspects, not a guest suspect.
No, that's easy, man. Dwyer is already a usual suspect. Just mark it down as that.
Right. But you were chit-chatting in the break, and one of the things we have on our menu this evening, because we haven't even gone through the menu, is the growing evidence of corruption in our region, And here it is, we talk about the parenting and that our prime ministers had mothers or have mothers. Yes, they do, Athie. And I am sure they have mothers who tell them anything they do, they're right. And not just now in adulthood, but from they were growing up. You raise children to make them think they're entitled, that they can do no wrong, that whatever they want, they can get it, and they should get it, and that they can always bully the other person to get what they want. You have a lot of parents out there like that. And I know, like for myself, we've all seen them at work. We've especially seen them in the schools when they go in the school to beat the teacher when the teacher tried to correct the child.
No, that to me should be a matter that goes straight to prison. And I'm dead serious on that.
Yes.
Well,
dead serious with it.
I have a split opinion on that, because there are some teachers who brutalize kids. And so you have to find a balance somewhere. I don't have a problem with discipline. I have a problem with the type of discipline that one chooses to employ. I went to school in a period where there were a lot of brutal teachers who figured that simply because they had a strap, it was an opportunity to abuse a child. And that is not right. And I always said that's a good thing. I did not have a kid, because some teacher would be dead if they did that to my child. I'm dead serious about it. No apologies.
I am not talking about abuse, Margaret. I'm talking about when a child fails an exam. The parent is going to go into school and demand that the teacher give the child a better grade. Instead of demanding.
That's the kind of stuff, yes.
That's the kind of, I'm not talking
abuse
about
is a different story altogether.
Totally different story. And I'm not even going down the abuse road tonight. I'm talking about when a teacher in the normal course of his or her work fails a child, disciplines a child. My daughter is a grown woman now. She walked away from lecturing in the university for the same things, because they wanted her to give these children scores that they didn't earn. And she told them straight up, she said, no, I'm not going to do it. There's no way I'm going to do it. I'm not going to pass somebody just because you feel like they should pass, or because the parent is Mr. So-and-so and Mrs. So-and-so and we need to give them the pass. And she told them straight up, she ain't going to do it. So she left them. She walked out of it and she left them. And I was so happy she did that and didn't become part of the problem.
The other side of that, Bev, is where they go to the school in front of the class and the child.
Exactly.
You see that? I mean, if you go to the school and you go to the classroom and you might have strong words, that is fine. But I've seen too many instances where they go to the school, some of them armed with a hammer, a cutlass, or something in front. I mean, the terror those other children in the class face. And Margaret, if it was a question of abuse, I might say somebody off the hook. But sometimes it's not that.
No, it's just because a parent feels like my child is entitled to something and the teacher is denying.
But listen to me, I know of somebody who is now a parliamentarian in St. Vincent and the Grenadines who took Huey to court because the person thought that they should have had, I can't remember what the grade was, an honors or something, and they weren't marked up like that, and they took Huey to court. You could check it if you like to Google it. Mm-hmm. That's the thinking there. Right. I am deserving of a first class honors. How dare you not give me?
Exactly.
And if you don't give that to me, I'm taking, and this is actually a court matter that can be found if you Google it. Mm-hmm. That's the mentality.
Mm-hmm. And
Well,
that's
and that seems, well, this whole thing, this entitlement with grades and stuff is not simply, it's happening here, even in elite universities in this country.
Well,
We're
yes.
finding the same problem.
right. And we are talking about it as an issue which leads to corruption. Because you have these people who, when they become members of parliament, like in St. Vincent, or become prime ministers, they have that same mindset of entitlement.
Yep.
When the prime minister can sit down and tell people that, look, we have no obligation to assist you after Ivan or after Maria. Not Ivan, because that didn't happen in Grenada, in Dominica. When you're going to tell the people, we have no obligation to you when you're sitting down on the people's money, it's because your mindset is that the money is yours and you can do as you like with it and you're entitled to it. And all of these people out there are beggars. That is rank corruption. When the prime minister can shut up people in a meeting and tell them, look, this is the top dog talking. So it don't make sense you say anything because the top dog has talked. All of those things are evidence of corruption in our governance system, where our prime ministers and members of parliament feel like they are entitled to what? To the resources of the country.
But there's another side to that coin. If we tolerate that kind of behavior, we nurture it. If we do not nip it in the bud, it grows and it multiplies. Remember, all, if not most of us, were also the subject of a Christian upbringing, where we were taught, at least verbally, to forgive, to care for, to pray for, and so on. But if you look at our society and you look at us and look at the parenting not used in our society, are we living those things? Are we teaching people to forgive? Do we even have the capacity to forgive? Should we forgive? I think of countries like Rwanda, where over 800,000 people were slaughtered, where over 250,000 women were raped, and they have found a way to forgive. I think of Bosnia, I think of South Africa, and then I think of the Caribbean. Tiny little specks where we know everybody or know of everybody, and we still do not have the capacity to say, I'm sorry. Should we be saying I'm sorry? Or should we be saying, you will never do this again, off with your neck, a la Francais? And in other words, these are not issues we discuss in our society. I mean, these seminal, fundamental things that shape civilizations, that define and determine who we are. We don't discuss them. Carnival is violent, but it's also a celebration of a certain part of our culture. Do we discuss it in those terms? No. We discuss Carnival in terms of how much money we're making and who making the money. So we are so off course, people. We are so off course. That our children, you can only feel a deep sense of fear and pity and fright about their future, because we have not engaged those issues. So how much is the next generation going to engage them? So is abuse going to even be talked about in a serious way, when in fact the people who are abusing include ministers who sit in their offices and abuse women who come to them on legitimate constituency matters, sexually abused, physically abused, and we know who they are. We know who they are. The women report it and the police do nothing about it. There are prime ministers, there are other senior ministers, all throughout the Caribbean. And we
tolerate
those
it.
people and call them honorable.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, people. And our children are watching.
Mm-hmm.
So are we not condemning the next generation to a life of what? I mean, hell on earth? Come on.
Let me just weigh in here on two counts. I noticed that thing was happening when students do well at school and they pass and they're bright. I watched parents who think they no longer have a right. I'm talking about in school, secondary school, right? Especially if it came out of a kind of poverty situation and it looked like they are going to take the family maybe to university or to college for the first time. I've watched parents who feel that they have lost the right to say anything to this child. And sometimes we ignore these things, you know. They feel that the child bright and therefore that means the child can do anything. And the child comes into the home, the child goes and comes as they like.
They do anything.
Do anything. And I have spoken to parents like this and I'm going like, lay alone. That is a Vincentian parlance, right? And then you watch what happens after. And you ask yourself, is it strange what happens? The next thing that I see happening in our society, there was a time when there was a distinction between who a child was, who a parent was, who an adult was, and who a child was. We have blurred all of these things now, right? And okay, our elders might have gone too far in some of them, but we have completely gone in the other direction. So you have children coming up who they engage in every conversation. They have whatever they like to say about another adult. They hear it said on the radio. They hear it in the politics. How do we then direct a generation? Saturday night, I sat down with an African, very well placed. He worked at the World Bank and stuff. And his daughter was one of the people who graduated in the same class with my son. And we were talking. And when I listened to how their society is structured in Ghana, and I watched the respect that Africans show to their elders, we have lost all of that. We have lost that. We haven't lost it. We have just simply thrown it out because once they have arrived, there is no longer any rudder, it seems, that we have lost in our society. And we wonder. And it's when I observed a lot of that stuff on Saturday night, I understood better the concept of the village raising the child. And that is why, I mean, a parent will think it fine to go to school with a piece of big stick or a cutlass or a hammer and attack a teacher. In the past, that was never happened. The teacher had a right. The teacher wasn't always right, but at least there was a certain frame in which the teacher operated. We have obliterated all of that. And we wonder why our society is going the way it's going.
Yeah.
We wonder. So if you can achieve a good mark and stuff like that, everything else comes second to that. That's why corruption comes in. And this is where we were headed.
Yeah. I can remember like when my child was in primary school, and sometimes you'd see some parents come into the school and the way they would behave, even if it's not toward the teachers, but just their language, their dress, the way they talk to their child. And as a young parent at the time, I'd look at them and I'd go like, oh, whoa, you know? And I live to see those children grow up to be exactly what you don't want your children to be in society. Exactly what you don't want. So when I talk about the importance of parenting, I'm not just saying it. It's something that I have studied at various different levels. The impact of parents on society, and it's because of poor parenting. which raise up people with a sort of mindset that let them think that it's okay to steal. So now it's okay to steal from the country.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you've achieved a certain rank and a certain level.
Yeah,
then it's okay.
Mm-hmm. It's okay to steal. If you have a child that you never thought that it was not okay to steal another student's pencil or to come home with another student's bag or anything like that, you think when he becomes an adult and he starts stealing from the treasury, stealing is stealing. The mind cannot make the distinction. They continue to steal. And those around them who benefit from the thieving continue to buffet and massage them and let them continue thinking that nothing is wrong with what you're doing. And when they do get into trouble, they go and corrupt the entire judicial system because they do not believe that they did anything wrong in the first place, so they shouldn't have to face any consequences because they did nothing wrong.
Just let me jump in here for a minute, Beverly. Sharon on social media says, you should say you are sorry if you are truly sorry, not because you were told to say so. I am a huge advocate of forgiveness as a Reiki master. One of the problems we have in the Caribbean is a result of beating our children. I've heard parents tell their sons, especially after a beating, to stop crying. These young men are so filled with anger. We have created monsters. I see Athie giggling there. Tell me, Athie. Talk to me. Talk to Sharon.
Yeah, I mean, George, you on a roll tonight, boy. I just enjoying your reflections there. You know, so because you're so on point, it is so correct, and that ends up confusing the child. I'm hitting you with a strap or with a tamarind whip or a guava branch, and I'm telling you, shut up. It is such a contradiction.
But
so confusing. Look, you know, so when the child, so you're telling the child, if somebody's visiting pain on you, say nothing.
Swallow it.
If they're stealing from your treasury, remain silent. Is that the message that we're kind of subliminally kind of transmitting here?
You know, I believe in today's world, we sometimes read too much into what we call putting on too slap on children. And again, I am not going down the abuse road because there are people who abuse children and I will have none of it. Children who grow up getting the strap the right way, they are some of the most upstanding citizens of today. You know, back in the day when mothers or grandmothers used to put on two slap and the hollering start, it's because the child was throwing a tantrum. And they're telling you, you want to throw a tantrum after I tell you what you just did is wrong, and you're coming to throw a tantrum because you think I shouldn't tell you. It is along that line that they would tell them, you want to get something to cry for? You continue. You see? You continue. So
you really want something to cry for.
You want something to cry for? You ain't get nothing yet. But what the child is doing is throwing a tantrum because they want to have their own way. Now, back then, parents ain't allowing children to get away with it. You see? So I am not talking about child abuse is not something I have zero tolerance for it, none. But when it comes to getting your child to walk the straight and narrow, you will employ measures as a parent that will work. And if putting on two slap on the child will work, you will do so. The child will not be bruised. They will not be injured. You will not have to take them to the hospital to get no stitches sewn up. They will be properly punished and will grow up to understand that wrong is wrong and right is right, and you need to have respect for authority.
Sharon says there's no right way of beating. It comes down from slavery. And I'm sitting here.
That's not true.
No, Sharon.
When we go those things, I get annoyed. That's from slavery.
This is
slavery is not the only. It's not the only civilization where that happens. So don't even go there. I'm sorry. We use these blanket statements and it annoys me because it's not true.
All right, guys, I'm sitting here listening to you guys and looking at Dwyer. I mean, Dwyer is so deep in thought. And I'm wondering if he got some cut tail when he was a little child. Dwyer, what are you so deep in thought about, sir?
I used to get blows every Friday night.
Every Friday night? Oh, you had a set night.
Friday.
Well, my brother and I used to go to the movies. And usually they would show cowboy movies with Rocky Lane and Roy Bancroft. And when we came home from the movies, we'd be so excited by what happened. We'd be talking loudly and maybe going to the fridge to get a snack or whatever. And invariably, we would wake up our father, who would be deep in sleep. And you do not disturb a man who has to work so hard to those children. And he's tired. So he was 5'6" tall. He weighed about 135. But when he swung the belt, he was like Mike Tyson. And he put you across your backside, and you went quiet, you brush your teeth, and you went to your bed. Now, it may have left scars on us, emotional scars, but I believe emotional scars are part of the journey of life.
Mm-hmm.
He did hit us out of anger and rage, but sometimes children enrage their parents. You should never hit a child out of anger and rage. But
True.
Sometimes children do enrage their parents.
Mm-hmm.
And parents are people too. But I think in the general mix of things, in the experience of myself and my generation, I don't think the little cut tail, and I'm using a more euphemistic term, the occasional cut tail that we got, in my case, it was weekly. I don't think it did me an awful lot of damage. Okay? So the thing is, you see, what has happened is, in the older dispensations, for the most part, violence was perpetrated against those who were enslaved and those who were oppressed. As things evolved and people became freer, they became freer in a larger context of materialism and selfishness. They became freer in a context, in a process that was evolving from the moral to immoral spectrum to an amoral spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So violence is okay. Thieving is okay. I need to get a diamond ring. So however I can get it, I gonna get it.
I will get it, yeah.
I need to get something to go to the music festival in St. Kitts. The tickets are $300 or $400 for the 3 nights. I need to get it. I need to get 3 wigs and 4 weaves, and I need to get my nails done. I need to get a sports car. You know what I mean? So we have gone into the realm of amorality. And in the realm of amorality, the damage that is done to humanity is of no interest to anybody, because we ain't got no sense of right and wrong. And that, to me, is what needs to be arrested and reversed and recalibrated. Now, I'll tell you this. The violence, the abuse perpetrated by politicians, people in positions of power, because it happens in the corporate world as well, towards females, say, is not the only type of violence and abuse that is perpetrated. Our system, our political arrangements are built on the premise of abuse. When I am going to fly a red flag and put on a red shirt, regardless of anything, or Jerry is going to put on a yellow shirt, regardless of anything, and I am going to defend to the death my leader, as wrong as he or she may be, and likewise for Jerry, as wrong or right as his leader may be, we are not thinking for ourselves, and we are not thinking of each other. So we have a political paradigm in which gang warfare and the gang mentality prevails. And that is a perfect environment for violence, whether literal violence or characterological violence. And that is what is happening. So we can't expect the children to be any different, because we have a saying in St. Kitts, sheep don't bring goat.
That's right.
Exactly.
Sheep don't bring goat. The children, what we are seeing with the children is a manifestation of what, if the standards or the lack thereof by which adults live. And that extends to our institutions, our private sector, which is totally ruthless and cannibalistic and Draculaistic, because the more profit they can make, we are guided by the profit margin, we are guided by economic growth, we are guided by a lot of things that are not sustainable. So morality and ethics and values have little place in such a paradigm. And that, to me, is at the heart of our problem.
The 737 Maxi, it is a perfect example.
Perfect example.
All right, guys.
Now, I tell you, there's something I wanted to refer to. Maybe it will come up in discussion, I don't know. But speaking of corruption, the Organization of American States has something called the Mechanism for Follow-up on the Implementation of the Inter-American Convention Against Corruption. It's called MECISIC. I don't know if you all are aware of that.
I've heard of it.
I think since around 2010, all of the OAS members, and I think there are about 35 member countries in the OAS, signed up to yield to occasional inspections that will be done in their country by an OAS team in terms of our performance against the framework of the Inter-American Convention Against Corruption. And the OAS did an analysis of St. Kitts and Nevis in October of last year. And they filed their report in March of this year. And the report is not flattering. It speaks to problems in terms of hiring, promoting, disciplining in the public service, the lack of independence of the Public Service Commission, the lack of transparency in the procurements of contracts, government contracts, the lack of protection for whistleblowers, the protection that politically elected persons get in terms of organized crime and crime in public office and so forth. It's on the OAS website, and I invite you all and your listeners to read it, because what is happening in St. Kitts and Nevis is not unique to us. The corruption and the mispractices and the malpractices are an epidemic to the Caribbean. And let us not forget that corruption is the costliest item in the running of a country. And when you put corruption as an unnecessary cost in the operations of a government, it means taxpayers have to spend more money. And in that process, it is the small man and woman who suffers most. So I invite you all to read that document, the OAS MECISIC, on St. Kitts and Nevis that was issued on March the 14th of this year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, our laws are very deficient. Our regulations are very deficient, and we elect people who have intelligence. So I can only conclude that a combination of two things is causing these deficient laws and regulations to remain. One, politicians who are unwilling to improve the laws and the regulations to make the situation more transparent. That's one culprit. And the other culprit is an unsuspecting and less than proactive body politic. As Sparrow sang in the 1960s with his song Steel Beam, we like it so. Our people are undereducated and not politically proactive enough. And so the politicians get away with murder and corruption, and a lot of us are contaminated by it because we get our piece of the cake too.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to me. Trinidad and Tobago, earlier this week, they were trying to get past a whistleblowing piece of legislation. It failed because currently the former AG and a senator were arrested because a whistleblower pointed where the problem was. $290 million was in legal fees was shared up between 12 lawyers in the former administration, and now there's this charge of kickbacks. In fact, in the entire ministry, something like $1.4 billion was spent. You get, and so what Dwyer just said there are people who know. These people voted. Here was a clear case, but they made sure that piece of legislation failed. They made sure it failed, right? The whistleblowing legislation. Mm-hmm. Because if that man hadn't stood up and spoken, because he was part of it, so he went into it as a plea bargain also. But what they're saying now is that we should make it easier for people who have information to step forward. They killed the piece of legislation.
And Jerry,
died in the water.
If I may expand on that a little bit. There's a third culprit, not just the body politic, but professional associations like the Bar Association.
Yes.
The medical associations.
The banking association.
All of these people, all of them are accomplices in this corrupt paradigm that has infested these countries in the Caribbean. All of them are to blame. The lawyers are busy making money. They may want business from the government. They may not want to offend somebody. A lot of people in the media are guilty as well. Because they want corporate sponsorship. They don't want to get on the wrong side of the government. So the truth doesn't come out. Here in St. Kitts and Nevis, for example, freedom of information, like in St. Vincent or Grenada or Jamaica, is a constitutional right. And Dominica, it's a constitutional right. It's not a benefit, it's not a privilege, it's a right. Last year, they passed a Freedom of Information Act. But the Freedom of Information Act has not been operationalized. We don't have information commissioners. We don't have a commissioner to head up the act. We don't have office space, we don't have tools, we don't have equipment, we don't have infrastructure. So the government here is saying, for example, well, we always in the media, we talk to the media. The thing is, there are so many important documents. Let me give you an example. They're doing a project here for a school, which is being built on or close to an aquifer. It's an $80 million project. If you want to see the environmental impact assessment, rather than it being on the government website for everybody to see, because it is everybody's money that is paying for it, you have to make an appointment to go to the planning unit. I have made an appointment and I can't get there until next week, Thursday, to see the plan that my tax money has paid for. So they're giving you a limited amount of information and telling you, well, we're sharing with you. It is not for them to decide, except if it is a matter of high sensitive national security interest. Other than that, the government information must be shared. And it is not happening in any of these countries.
Well, Dwyer, what is happening is that I think it's part of the Millennium Goal, this whole question of freedom of information. So they go to Parliament, they make a big song and dance about it, they pass the legislation, but the legislation never gets acceded to. And we need some time to realize this trick. So they put it in there, it's there, the Governor General never signs off on it. But if the international community were to ask, they could say, but sure, we passed that legislation.
Mm-hmm.
Was it actualized? No. That's where sometimes I think we need to go and find out how many pieces of legislation are in purgatory, just languishing there because it doesn't suit the government to bring it on the books.
Let me give you another example very quickly because I don't want to hog the time.
No, man, talk.
The Integrity in Public Life Act. The Integrity Commission has not been properly funded, so it can't operate. But in addition to that, the Act requires that the minister responsible must issue an order in order to trigger off the filing of declarations by the relevant public officials, declarations of personal net worth. The Act was passed in 2017. Up to now, the Minister of Legal Affairs cannot find the time to issue the order. Up to now, we can't find the time to do it. But they could find time to travel all around the world and to have big dinners and stuff their bellies in fancy hotels in London and New York and St. Kitts and Barbados and all over the place. But he cannot find the time to sign the order to make sure that his colleagues and other people file their declarations of net worth, personal assets. That tells me, I may be wrong, but it tells me, it leads me to conclude that they have no interest in transparency. And I'm telling you, if we in the Caribbean want to get anywhere and to gain any respect in the world, we have to reach the level of best international practices. And if we can't do that, we will continue to be mocked and be the laughing stock of the world. And this is happening. People laugh at us. We go around the world begging for money. And when you get money from Taiwan or China, you go and tell the people in a public rally, look how good we're doing. We're building a stadium. But you beg for the money or you borrow it and you know you can't pay it back. One big puppy show is a joke.
No, the whole thing's actually a joke.
And when the international organizations, to use an example, put us on the grey list and the blacklist, we start to jump up and down and scream victimization because we're small.
But we don't play small with the other stuff we're doing, though.
But we're playing big with teething. We're teething big. But when we have to face up to the consequences, we're bawling, so we're small. You know? And trying to lead the population, the blind voting population, trying to lead them to believe that people out there have something against you.
But you know, Dwyer,
I mean, look, hold on, Athie, just for 1 second for me, because I was just going to use Dominica and you could support me. You have the international community bringing sanctions against a country. And a country like Athie's country is going to help them circumvent the sanction. And then when they turn and bear on them, they start to say, oh, you see, we're poor and because we're smart. But you big enough to know that you could help another nation to circumvent an internationally established sanction. The whole thing is just disgusting. Yeah, but go ahead.
It's more disgusting because it's really not the country of Dominica that broke the sanctions. It is some vagabonds and criminals in senior positions in the government, because they are the ones who also benefited. Where did they get the money to lease?
But they represented. They were positioned by the government.
They represent, but it's not the country. And I think I want to make that distinction because so many things are done in the name of people, and the people have no idea as to what is going on, and that's part of the common thread that Dwyer kind of signaled before. When things get commercialized that should never have been commercialized, I mean, if we go back really, really far in time, what was the first thing that was commercialized that should not have been commercialized? It was sex. And it was if we want to pick a starting point, when the Creator told Adam, don't eat that fruit, he wasn't talking about apples and oranges.
Don't eat that fruit?
And that the commercialization, the use of wonderful, features and treasures of creation for other than the intended purpose. In this case, the purpose would have been procreation. But when it begins to be used to get control over other people and to dominate and to subjugate other people, then you begin to see what's happening. So the commercialization of sex was soon followed by the commercialization of religion, the commercialization of politics, the commercialization of every single thing, education, entertainment, sports, and so the wonderful experiences, in quotes, of Jack Warner with FIFA and football in our region, among all the other FIFA officials in all the other regions that actually, dug their fingers into the monies that should have gone into the various countries of their regions to promote and advance something for the young people of their nations. So they deprived, they abused, they pillaged, they crucified, and they actually, let young people languish. We still don't have the kinds of facilities that allow us to actually not just get to the Olympics, but actually allow our young people to participate in healthful, healthy, wellness-giving kind of activities called sports and so forth. So when we allow, and Dwyer's point again, when we allow these things to be commercialized, we pay a price. Dwyer mentioned this OAS thing. Yes, I've seen it. There's another OAS agreement to which all our countries are signatories, something called the Inter-American Strategy for Public Participation in Decision-Making about Development. And there's a whole lot of documentation about how you ensure that the people know what is being planned, how you ensure that the people have a chance to affect, to give direction to development in their respective countries in a way that actually turns participation into a tool of sustainable development. We signed those things, but just like all the other things that we signed, as Dwyer mentioned again, we pass things into law, but we don't do the regulations or we don't activate the law. We even create IPOs, Integrity in Public Office Commissions. We did in Dominica. We went the full 9 yards. We created it. We set it up. We put the Bar Association on it. We put the two political parties in opposition and in government on it. We had accountants and so forth. And when the people started asking questions about the submissions from various politicians, including from the Prime Minister, about his assets, when the declaration that he gave of his assets didn't in any way, jive with his legal income, and they started asking questions and demanding for more information and so on, he did something very simple. Because the law was written in a way that allowed him to decide on the composition of the IPO, he changed the IPO. He got rid of the representative of the accounting group. He got rid of the representatives of the Bar Association. And from a 9-person commission, it became a 5-person commission. 3 of which were selected by him. And the first action of that new IPO was to throw his matter out and say they no longer have any interest in the anomaly of his asset declaration. So we saw this. This was brought to the attention of the public, but the public didn't participate in the exercise of getting things back on track, and so it's gone the way of the dodo bird. Doesn't exist.
All right.
And so I really do think, and to me that's what I extract from Dwyer's submission and the point you were making, Jerry, is that it gets back to the point that Bev always makes. Unless we find a way, and the way cannot be the mechanism of the partisan politics that we have now, because it doesn't work. Unless we find a way to allow the people who are most affected by decision making, most affected by what happens in politics, in religion, in art, in culture, etc., who are the people, to let them be in not just every 5 years pretend to have a say, but every week, every month.
Yeah.
So that's the task.
It is the task.
All right, hold on a sec, Bev, because I want to throw something out here at Dwyer. Dwyer, there's somebody on social media named Renewed Purpose who has raised a point here. And I think that having a legal mind on board tonight is going to be a great asset to us. He or she says, we need NGOs to start a campaign to educate the average person on matters of governance. That's important. But even more important, Dwyer, he or she goes on to say, then the next stage is to ensure that we hold our leaders accountable and tried in no less than 5 years. Mr. Lawyer, let me hear you.
Yeah, well, I agree. In fact, I am part of a group here in St. Kitts and Nevis called Operation Rescue. We are a watchdog group and we do exactly that. We hold their feet to the fire, regardless of who is there. Our mantra to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis is this: think for yourselves, but think of others. Think for yourselves, but think of others. The essential ingredient is to think. Our people are not conditioned to think. The education system does not nurture thinking and thoughtfulness.
Absolutely.
The political system does not encourage that. The political system, for the survival of the politicians of this vintage, requires distraction, deception, division, and dumbing down. This is the challenge that we face, and this is the mountain we have to climb. But definitely, NGOs and other organizations, individuals, groups of any kind, who are proactive and progressive, and who are truly committed to transparent and efficient and elegant and dignified governance, and having a real modern and progressive and prosperous society, have to take the bull by the horns and call a spade and face whatever consequences we have to face, even if we have to go down in the effort and make sure that the generations to come inherit something better. Secondly, they have to teach civics in the schools. Our children have to learn about how we are governed. They have to learn about the Constitution. They have to learn about the information, the importance of integrity in public life, not just integrity in public life, but integrity, period. You have to learn about the dissemination of information, about being free to associate with people, about frustration, tolerance, about having discussions without being quarrelsome, of learning to get along. And none of these things are part of the modus operandi of the politicians, because if that were to be successful, their reign would end tomorrow. So the battle is to get people. For example, when I was in politics here some time ago, a fellow said of our leader, Dr. Douglas, he said, when Dr. Douglas wrong, he right. And when he right, he double right.
Oh gosh.
I said, brother, you have 52 ounces of brain in your head.
52 by 52.
52 ounces of brain in your head. backing a man doesn't mean you must be blind. In fact, if you really back him and care for him, you will point out his errors and his misdeeds when they occur. And if he continues with the errors and misdeeds, he's not worthy of your backing.
Exactly.
All these political parties and so need to be put away, and people need to run for office, and the voters need to say, look, I like Athie Martin, I can vote for him. I like Jerry George, I can vote for him. I like Dwyer, I can vote for him. Whoever the case may be, I like Mary, I can vote for her. And let them sit down responsibly and form a government based on proper governance principles.
Exactly.
That's where we need to be going. This party politics, as a matter of fact, the party politics is not only one of the causes of crime in the countries, but it's one of the causes of the divisiveness and the underperformance of the countries.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yep.
You do sound like a usual suspect, because that is what I say on this program all the time.
The man has earned his ranks.
We have to get rid of political parties. They are the bane of our existence.
Yeah.
We need to get rid of them. And we need to take a break and come back and wrap up with the other issue that we're not going to leave here and don't touch tonight. LIAT.
All right. All right. Bet. I tell you what.
Like we have a hostess on board.
We're gonna take that break, yeah. But I'll tell you, sitting here tonight, my coffee has gotten absolutely cold. And as soon as we get back from this break, I hope you guys don't mind if I excuse myself very briefly, just to go get another cup of coffee. Is that okay with you?
You're allowed.
Okay. Hang in there. Break coming up.
Grenadian General Insurance Company, strength and stability. Grenadian General Insurance Company. Tell your friends, tell your family. We cover householders comprehensive, motor and even fire too. Contractors all risk burglary, public liability, professional indemnity, directors liability, and wait, we still have more. Come and find out more what you're waiting for.
We are located on Scott Street, St. George's. For more information, call 440-2434.
Tell everybody.
Together with you, our customers, we energize our community.
Together with you, we energize our economy.
We are working together to give our nation a better tomorrow.
With you, we energize our future. Together, we energize our nation.
Thank you for partnering with us as we energize our Speyside.
GRENLEC, energizing our Grenada.
All right, guys, we are we're back. Just before I go, I want to share a couple of things on social media here. John says, "Vent your angst, Dwyer," and Renewed Purpose says, "Many political leaders feel that dividing and conquering is the best way to stay in power and to advance their agenda, but at what cost? I would feel more confident in government knowing that I have set up a model whereby the citizens' needs are prioritized and addressed at the right timing. My party would have no fear of losing elections if I govern in a transparent manner."
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. But it's not about governing, it's about enriching through all of these elements of corruption that we're talking about.
I don't say that lightly, because it's more and more that evidence is coming to me, this corruption thing.
Yes.
And they've gotten very skillful with it.
And not just very skillful, very bold.
Skillful and willful.
And willful, yes.
Skillful and willful, Jerry.
They're coming in your face now.
Right in your face.
They're coming in your face now and tell you, when I give you a house, it's for you to keep me in the house.
Yeah.
No? So no longer is there any subtlety about it. because as far as they're concerned, they have the population hook, line, and sinker to jump behind them in some bright color t-shirt with their hungry belly. And when time come to vote, they go and vote for them because they get a house, because they get two zinc sheets, 2 sheets galvanized, whatever you call it in your country. Or, you know, they get some little trinket. Just like when the Europeans used to go to Africa, go buy people for some little trinkets.
But this is worse, you know. This is
I agree.
worse. Because the Europeans were not elected by our people.
But
exactly.
What we have now are post-independent leaders who have our people celebrating their own degradation.
Exactly.
That is the ultimate disgrace when you're celebrating your own degradation.
Yes, I fully agree, because I always look at people and wonder, don't you see that what you're doing it to yourself?
They don't care.
The people you have elected, they don't care about you. They don't. As for them, you are just a vote. You're not
That's
a
right.
person. You don't mean anything. Because if you did, they would show you some respect. But they don't. You go and you vote for them this morning and this evening is a different story. And every 5 years, people go and vote and they demand nothing from the people they elect more than to wait for another 5 years to get their roof fixed, to get 2 more sheets of zinc, to get little more food, and that is all. Yeah, the roof leaking, but don't worry, election coming, and we get 2 sheets of zinc when election come. And people have just been reduced to the plate of food mentality. And
Voting
it's like,
cattle.
yeah, and it's like our generation, we black people who have come out of slavery and come out of the plantation era, have lost that sense of pride when we stood for something and when we fought for something and when standing above meant something. All of a sudden we gone right back down further than where we came from, and we like it.
Well, some of us believed, Beverly, that when we raised our flags of independence, that was the end of the struggle. That was one of the big mistakes we made. They didn't realize that was when the real struggle began.
Absolutely.
Because now you are in charge of your own business.
Because Dwyer, what we thought, we were made to believe that the real problem was the colonialists. We never thought that these people, who many of them, when they came forward in those early days, came forward like champions and saviors and the rest of it. We never believed that they would use the same legislation, right, to bind us, to shackle us, because that is what is happening today now. These so-called brilliant people are using the legislation. They're using the parliaments. They're skirting the edge of the legislation and tying us up. Many of them who came out and were socialists and communists, they can't do it now back like they could have done it in the 80s. But they're using the legislation to tie us in the same way.
To do exactly what they want.
Same thing.
You know? So we do have a fight on our hands, and we have started to chip away. I believe a lot more people are paying attention. I believe a lot more people are speaking sensibly. I look on the communications through the various media that I use and that others use, and you can see that more and more people are beginning to confront those in positions of authority and in positions of leadership. And they are starting to ask questions and starting to demand answers. And once the snowball is set into motion, there's no holding it back. But we got to keep going.
I hope you're right.
Yes.
I hope you're right, sister.
Yes, it's starting slowly, Dwyer. But if you watch it, it has started. It has started. In Jamaica, the youth arm of the PNP levied a scathing attack on the senior members of the party. They ripped into them like paper. you know? So you can see people are beginning to ask questions and to say things to people in authority that maybe even 5 years ago they would not have wanted to say or would not have wanted to do. Albeit some of it is not coming out in a positive, maybe not even in a productive way, but it's good that people are beginning to realize that politics, politicians, and as you mentioned, the private sector, everybody in positions of authority and leadership and what they like to call power, we need to start making demands of them if we expect that our children and our grandchildren and the generations to come will have anything to inherit in this Caribbean. So we got to work hard, we got to work fast, and we have to keep going.
And you're moving, and probably we'll take it up in another edition, this whole question of that corruption thing. You know. And we need to become a lot smarter in understanding what they're doing. But you said we had another thing tonight. Let's deal with that. It's something we need to look at, because I am seeing some moves, right, where these people are now using the business structure to do their nastiness. Before it was a completely different approach, but now,
And the business people facilitating them because everybody getting a cut.
Because everybody getting piece of action.
Yep. And talking about business, we're going to look at the business of LIAT. You know, the government of one of the elected officials in Grenada who sits in the cabinet, Minister of CARICOM Affairs, Oliver Joseph, announced in a news conference, in the post-cabinet conference this week, that Grenada has become the latest shareholder in LIAT. And I said to myself, here come elected officials again, taking people for idiots. A few weeks ago, when the Prime Minister of Trinidad said that LIAT had something like 10 days to live if it didn't get $5.4 million US dollars, the only non-shareholding, shareholding in quotations, because Grenada has been a shareholder of LIAT for a long, long time, albeit a tiny shareholder, right? So the only non-shareholding country to come forward and say we'll help is Grenada. The Minister of Finance, who is the Prime Minister of Grenada, announced that they handed over $1 million to LIAT. Then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, the Minister of CARICOM Affairs comes and says, oh, we gave them $1.3 million and Grenada is now a shareholder in LIAT. And I'm like, so how do you become a shareholder in LIAT? Who sold shares, right? Because according to what you can find, even when you go on LIAT website, LIAT don't tell you the distribution of shares. But according to information that you can find, Barbados, Antigua, Barbuda, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Dominica own 94.7% of LIAT, right? And the other 5.3% is owned by Grenada, Guyana, Jamaica, St. Kitts, Nevis, Montserrat, St. Lucia, Trinidad, Tobago, Antigua Commercial Bank, Antigua Barbuda Investment Bank, ACB Investment Company Limited, Antigua Barbuda Workers Union, BW West Indies Airways Limited, Caribbean Airways, HKH Antigua Limited, Leeward Islands Aeronautical Engineers Association, LIAT Staff Provident Fund, National Commercial Bank of Dominica, National Commercial Bank of Grenada. I think both of these are now Republic banks. Joan Slack, State Insurance Company, St. John's Cooperative Credit Union. Those are the other people listed that own 5.3% shares. So whose shares Grenada buy?
But hold on. Something that is missing. There's this company in Saudi Arabia, one of them, who bought the 7 airlines, the aircrafts, right? And who leased them back. And they have, I was told they had, I think it was 17%. So I don't understand how this share thing go. Because when they were asked...
I don't understand how LIAT share things go.
That's what I'm talking about. It's LIAT I'm talking about. Because I'm telling you, when they were making the decisions in the first meeting on March 11th, these people were mentioned that they had discussions with them about taking a cut, just like how they were having this. They used that with the staff to say, listen, these people don't belong to us, and we spoke to them, and they're taking a cut, and this is your business, and you don't want to take a cut. That is one of the things they use. So they too they too are shareholders. I don't get it, because this has to be a share that is bigger than 100%. Eh?
It has to be more than 100%.
Has to be more than 100%.
Grenada.
Don't look so startled, Margaret. Not me. Yeah. It has to be.
Yeah. Grenada is
I'm just trying to figure this out.
Yeah. This is one of those cases of half and bigger half.
Mm-hmm. Grenada is among that small block which owns the 5.3% of LIAT. The other 4 countries own 94%. So who sold shares to Grenada? How many shares did Grenada get for the 1.3 million, which the minister said, oh, it's not a million, we did give them is 1.3. And how can you use the same money, which you say you're giving for emergency funding, but all of a sudden now is that same money you use to buy the shares? Is who these people taking for idiots?
No, because they have done it for years, but this time we calling them out. Because there's a distinction between a shareholder and a stakeholder. All right? And somebody needs to tell them we ain't all this dumb anymore.
Exactly.
Because Antigua was talking about buying over the majority shares from Barbados.
From Barbados.
We still ain't
Well,
hear nothing
that's what I
much
was going to ask, because I thought I heard something about Barbados wanting to sell their shares or selling their shares or something.
Well, I'm not so
was
sure that
wondering.
Barbados say they want to sell their shares. Antigua say they will buy it.
Okay, because then I was wondering if that was where Grenada got shares, if they bought shares from
No, Barbados don't sell no shares. Nobody
Barbados has 49.1 shares.
Okay.
Well, no, 41%. However much shares, because we don't know. We don't
Out
know
of the
what
94%, because we really don't know what percentage each island holds. But we know that 4 together control 94.7%, and everybody else control 5.3%. So where did Grenada get shares?
And so if my tax dollar as a citizen is contributing to LIAT, why I don't know what percentage of the shares that each...
Let me tell you something, Margaret. I found out recently from another country that when their prime minister even asks for the financials, they don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going to the same country to ask them to bail them out. So this whole question, and that is why I understand when Prime Minister Gonzalez say that going to the private sector is a no. Because if you go to the private sector, you have to release all the... You see, all that talk about Branson is talk.
But
there is no way they're going to sit down and without putting those financials on the table. It ain't going to happen.
But that's the only thing Richard Branson going to talk about. The figures.
Yes.
Because if you're going to invest in an entity, you have to know where it is.
You
and
have to know what they're putting money in. But I was told they can't, not even the prime ministers were able to get the information on the financial. They refuse to give them.
Who holds this board accountable?
Obviously, some small group holds it. And then they come to us every time and tell us that they need more money. But we never know where the money that we gave them last time went to. And we never know really and truly. I could tell you this much. There's a $60 million US loan.
Somebody has the radio playing.
There's a feedback coming back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a $60 million loan that LIAT has. I could tell you that. And LIAT has found itself in further trouble because remember that case in the US Virgin Islands? That's eaten into their US reserve because they have to. It's not like in one of these islands where they would not have bothered with it. They have to pay that. They have to.
And
it's US dollars.
Gaston Brown said a former employee who sued them, should have looked at the books and looked at LIAT's state of affairs before he filed the lawsuit.
He said the lawyers and the court should have looked at the state of LIAT
before handing down the judgment. How can you tell LIAT to pay all this money and LIAT don't have money? Prime Minister Brown says a lot of things. He's the top dog and he barks a lot. Yeah,
But the one thing I want to say about it before we run out is that I have seen, and I mentioned it this morning, that a senior economist from the Caribbean Development Bank has reiterated the stance of the CDB. 3 years ago, the CDB did a study and prepared a report, and in the report were recommendations. The Prime Minister talks about the recommendation where they say, 1, fold it up, 2, give it to private sector, 3, restructure it. They quote that all the time. But one of the biggest things that came out of that report was the fact that the CDB says the government taxes are literally stifling travel in the region. You don't hear them mention it. In fact, in that same interview that was so touted last week with Prime Minister Gonsalves talking about the closure imminent, Prime Minister Gonsalves came to blows with Chester Humphrey on that issue. Because when asked about it, he is saying, we can't do anything about that because how else would we pay for the airports? And I remember give Chester his...
Hold a second, Jerry. Argyle International Airport in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that is the highest tax on any ticket, you know.
Yeah, no. And if they give them a chance to raise it again.
You see? So...
Yeah, isn't it? And the other thing is, too, if you happen to be on a LIAT flight, if you're unfortunate to get one of these flights that's stopping, that does what the milk run, for example, where it stops pretty much everywhere going, then you pay taxes on every single airport that you touch down in.
And the point I was going to make is that Chester Humphrey made an excellent point. Because when the Prime Minister said, how do we expect we're going to maintain all these big airports? First thing, who sent us to have every country have an international airport? That's one. But he made the point. He says, look at New York. 14 million people. There are 2 major airports in New York. Right?
You know, that's a very good point for Senator Humphrey to be making now. But when Dr. Gonsalves was building the airport, Senator Humphrey was one of the loudest voices of
Well, you know how they are. You know how they are. That's what we can't understand with these people.
The limited vision, because at the time when the airport was being built, Chester Humphrey, who was leading the workers' union at that time, he didn't realize that it's going to become a strain. He didn't realize.
No, my dear, it is about who they support. It's about the support for who. It's a personality.
And a matter of convenience.
Yes, it's about the personality. If I'm supporting this person, whatever this person does, I'm supporting it because for some reason this person is God.
But it's the same personality. So why is it now that he's pointing out to him the folly of building another airport?
Can I say something?
Sure.
Now, I've heard this argument about airport taxes and charges. I grew up in a shop. My father had a shop. We used to sell red beans and pig snout and pigtail and saltfish and so, right? So I learned my first degree I didn't get in school. I got my first degree in my father's shop. It was a BSc behind the shop counter. That was my first degree. And I understand that if you lower the airport charges, Jerry and Beverley and Margaret and Athie and everybody else, if you lower the airport charges, you create the opportunity and the tendency and the likelihood for more traffic to come through your airport. So even though you're making less per unit passenger, you're grossing up to higher numbers.
And the volume.
And the volume. So they must not punish the passengers and they must not punish LIAT with these high taxes. The very governments and leaders who are calling for people to bail out LIAT are the ones whose countries impose the highest taxes on the tickets.
Thank you.
It is damn hypocritical, excuse my language. It is hypocritical.
It is.
And that to me is one of the major problems with LIAT. A second major problem with LIAT is the fact that it is overemployed, particularly in Antigua. And to ask governments from other countries to subsidize bad governance in Antigua because the government there cannot find alternative jobs for the people in the private sector is not amusing to me. And the third problem is the lack of transparency. Here we are speculating as to where the shares come from that Grenada says they bought. We shouldn't be speculating on these things. The whole region should know what the LIAT accounts look like, the relative shareholdings, and all of this business. I don't like this opaque governance thing, and it must end. And if I were leading a government, while I'm a big LIAT supporter and I understand the critical importance of LIAT, I would not pump a penny into LIAT until I saw the books.
And that is stand up
and until I got the governments to agree to lower their rates and for them to allow LIAT to run itself like a business rather than all of this political spitting in their mouths.
Dwyer?
And that's the problem. Yes, sir.
Okay. We're heading into the home stretch here, but you guys have said some very important stuff in the last few minutes, and I want to share with you what your audience thinks about what you guys are saying. So let me try and squeeze this in here very quickly. And if we have to run a few minutes overtime, no problem. Renewed Purpose says, panelists, I hate to have to say this, but there is a cabal, a carefully organized and sinister plan by many in authority to undermine and overthrow all the moral principles that ensure stability in a society. Delroy Murray says, yes, in St. Vincent, government is the same thing. Martin Felix says, this one puzzles me, he says, George, you act like communism is our biggest problem. What has communist done to you? Well,
that was for Jerry. No, that was Jerry.
Oh, that George. Ah.
Yeah, and I could deal with that, don't worry.
Okay.
I could handle that.
John says...
Because I want somebody to show me where communism has worked.
John says the young ones need to speak up as it's their future that's getting screwed up. And he also asked Bev, who's holding LIAT shares? You know about LIAT shares. One thing I thought was very interesting about that post-cabinet briefing is that the reporter asked the minister, okay, so we've given $1.3 million. How many shares are we getting in return for that? And the minister did not have an answer. He said,
there's no answer. They're fooling us. There is no answer. Because they're trying to make fools out of us. But big headline. Grenada becomes the fifth shareholder.
Yes.
What shares?
Yes.
Where are the shares?
Grenada, LIAT has what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Grenada, LIAT has over 20 shareholders, including Grenada. So the question is, where did Grenada get $1.3 million worth of shares to buy? Who sell?
Renewed Purpose says, panelists, we need to remember that there are some people in our society who have a lot of influence in the judiciary and otherwise. They are part of the brotherhood, and they are very instrumental in perpetuation of crimes and other evils in our society. Some of us would choose to remain silent, but it is well known that many things are swept under the carpet because of who is representing you or who you are associated with. John comes back and asks the question, does LIAT produce a yearly budget report?
No, the banks do, but not LIAT.
Angus Steele says Grenada's shares is about legacy. Let George,
is about what?
Legacy.
Oh, I see.
Let George explain. Mr. I'm assuming he's meaning.
Who's that, Angus?
Yes.
Angus Steele. Yeah.
So you want to respond, Jerry?
No, I just want to make sure it's Angus.
Okay.
Yes. Angus said, good night all. Made it on another Thursday night. Jerry, long time.
Yeah, man, long time we didn't talk, definitely.
Guys, let me tell you something. Tonight has been one bang-up program. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. I sure hope you opened a lot of eyes. I believe you do. But like somebody said earlier on, people just aren't listening. They just aren't listening. But Bev, I think you suggested earlier on that people are starting to listen in certain islands. They're rebelling.
Mm-hmm. And I like the tagline for Dwyer's group. Think for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny, Steve, go ahead.
Think for yourself and think of others.
Yeah. Kenny Stevens says, the leaders we have in our region are setting us up for sale into slavery. Their actions, which include greed and corruption, are speeding up this process.
Yep.
And Angus Steele says, not Jerry, but you, George Grant.
Says Margaret, who ought to put me in the crosshairs.
So, guys, 10 o'clock, any
yes.
parting words?
Well,
let me thank you all again for joining us for another edition of Mek We Chat. And listen, share this, invite your other friends. Thursday night we're here, and as you can see, we have a wide cross-section of views and issues, but you hear it straight up. I'm Jerry George on behalf of all of the suspects saying so long. Join us again next week.
Well, hold on, Jerry. Hold on. Somebody, your buddy Angus is just tossing something out here. He says we need a discussion on bank charges and fees. Boy, let me tell you, that one's going to be a scorcher. Because I had an issue the other day which really freaked me out, you know. I wanted to get a statement. A bank has been sending me monthly statements on my account. And then I noticed that 2 statements were missing. And these statements are only 2 pages each, okay? So I called the bank and I asked them, please, could you send me these 2 statements? Sure. $42 each. Okay, you didn't hear me?
Did you say each?
$42.
42. I believe it's 42 in truth.
Yeah.
So George, you don't bank online?
Yeah, yes.
But even so.
At one of the banks I do.
How do you get $42 for a statement?
$42 per statement, Jerry. $42.
Ooh.
Yeah.
As anyhow, Barbados have moved, and the Banking Association in Barbados have given an undertaking that they have to level those things off. And what is wrong in our countries is that the people, there's no association that deals with any of this. There's no consumer association that challenges these things. The banks simply,
everybody corrupt. Everybody corrupt.
There you go. There you go.
All right, guys. So thanks a lot. Dwyer.
Yes, sir.
Come and see us next week, boy.
Thank you, sir.
Dwyer's on, man. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Dwyer is now a usual suspect.
Yes.
Thanks for having me,
Right,
man.
Athie? Cheers.